The girls' bedroom is quiet and empty, stripped of all the young laughter that had once filled it. The toys are as the children left them. And stacks of Christmas presents remain unopened. Deborah Chan bought them in hopes her children would be home in time.
I know how much I miss them, and I know that they're missing me just as much, and this is what tears me apart. And it's a very, very cruel thing to do to children.
Last April 7th, Deborah's husband of 10 years stole their children, Justin, Yasmin, and Yolande.
I remember going into their bedroom to kiss them goodnight. And when I woke up in the morning, they were gone. And there was a note that's saying that he took the children, and it was a very brief note.
Mrs. Chan says she was puzzled when she saw her children were gone. She came out here and found that his car was gone from the driveway. Then the events of the past month started falling together, and she realized her husband and children were gone for good. Looking back over their marriage, Deborah now believes Wilfred Chan married her only to remain in the United States after his student visa had expired. She believes he had been plotting the child abduction for years.
I don't know what things that he's telling the children. I don't know if he's telling them that their mother didn't want them. And if he's telling them things like that, I know that that's going to hurt them psychologically.
As any of us would do, Deborah first called her local police department. But since Wilfred Chan shared custody of the children, there was little police could do.
There's no divorce proceedings. They were living as man and wife. He has as much custody rights to the children as he has, and that decision had not been made by any court on who had the custody.
So Deborah went to court and more than 3 months later got a grand jury indictment against her husband on charges of child stealing. Deborah believes he is hiding somewhere on the West Coast, perhaps with other members of his Chinese family. To help in the search, police entered Chan and the children's statistics in the National Crime Information Computer, which is also used as a clearinghouse for missing persons.
If Mr. Chan would get stopped for a minor traffic violation or anything of that nature, then they would check through the computer for any record of wanted on Mr. Chan, and then they would get the hit on him.
I just try to be as positive as I can be and visualize in my mind they're safe and being cared for. Justin was a real friendly, outgoing little guy, and he was very much interested in the piano, and he had won first place in a Baldwin piano competition shortly before he left, and he was due for his recital. And the girls, they were all ready and excited to appear in their dance recital, which they never made it. It's hard to walk in their rooms and clean their rooms. It's hard to go in a department store and go through the children's department without crying.
If you could say something to them, or what will be the first thing you'd say to them if you would find them?
I'd tell them I loved them.
Cold?
Mm-hmm.
Melissa's story began on January 16th when Dayton police released her photo to the news media. She had been missing for 6 weeks.
The Dayton Police Department needs your help. They're looking for a 15-year-old Dayton girl who's been missing since November the 28th. The girl's name is Melissa Thomas of 343 Middle Street in Dayton.
She had run away from her Dayton View home several times before, but she'd never been gone for this long. Her mother began to fear she was in trouble.
At first, I was angry, and then I became very worried. And as each day went on, I became more and more worried about her. And it got to the point where I was even having nightmares.
Social workers traced Melissa to a housing project here in Charleston, West Virginia. Police in Dayton issued a warrant for her arrest on incorrigible juvenile charges, and then the police here in Charleston served the warrant. On January 20th, police entered the housing project to escort Melissa back to the station. She would later be released to her mother's custody. Melissa says she arrived here with a Dayton man who tried to force her to prostitute.
He wanted me to go out and work on the streets for him. I wouldn't, and he kept hitting on me, so I just left him. And he left me right after I left him.
How'd you feel then when you were here by yourself?
Scared, lonely. But I managed to find some people that would help me.
Melissa went with the police passively, knowing that after almost 2 months, it was time to go home.
The number of youngsters who leave and stay away for a long period of time is a rare case. And when it does happen to a parent, it inevitably is tremendously upsetting, especially since so many parents at that point really don't know whether something terrible has happened to their child or the child has just decided to pick up and go someplace else.
Melissa waited at the police station while her mother drove 5 hours from Dayton. She had come to take her daughter home, but even then, there was the fear that Melissa would run away again.
Miss Ann, can I ask you a question? I'm going to ask you honestly. Are these going to be necessary? Because they are. I'll slap one on you and one on me, miss.
It was a strained reunion, one that followed 2 frightening months for a mother and daughter who had suffered perhaps more than their share of family problems.
Breakdown of communications, I guess. She didn't like the rules I had set, and I guess, well, I didn't approve of some of the idiots she tried to hang out with. I set my foot down on it, so one thing led to another, and just total breakdown of communications.
In what way don't you think you were ready for this?
No job, no money. Not enough. I'm happy to see her. I care for her. No more.
Do you think you're going to try to make it work at home this time?
Yeah, I'll try. That's the only thing I can do.
Supporters are calling this the Fritz Blitz, a last opportunity to deluge Dayton voters with Mondale campaign literature, just 3 days before the Ohio primary.
Well, anything you can do for Mr. Mondale, we'd certainly appreciate it. Please come down to our rally tomorrow.
Congressman Tony Hall led one of the many precinct walks today, reminding residents who to vote for when they walk to the polls on Tuesday, not always with the desired result.
I just kind of like heart.
Well, think about us.
And while Mondale walkers wore out the campaign path in Dayton, here in Springfield they were walking and running for Jesse Jackson. Then they channeled that energy into a political rally inside the St. John's Missionary Baptist Church. The Reverend Otis Moss, a Cleveland minister who has also been an active leader in Jackson's state campaign, was today's keynote speaker, calling Reagan's presidency a reign of error and proclaiming "Run, Jesse, run."
Jesse Jackson's campaign is necessary to keep democracy alive. Yes, sir. And it's sufficient to carry America to a new watershed in history.
The rally and today's walks were held not only to raise campaign dollars and more support, but to remind voters that the primary is next Tuesday and that tomorrow they can expect the candidates themselves to walk through our area. Laura Williams, TV2 Eyewitness News.
This is war-torn Miami Township. Police officers armed with shotguns and firecrackers walk the perimeters, waiting for the nightly air attacks. The enemy arrives like clockwork every night at sunset. But on this night, Miami Township police counterattack and catch the enemy off guard.
We just scare them off 10 or 15 feet and they fly right back. And we've had no success at all in getting them to move out. If they move any, it's just around the hill a little ways.
Dr. Travis Hudson is one of the commanders in the Battle of the Birds. Usually, the mild-mannered man of cloth tolerates the starlings' annual visit. 3,000 or 4,000 arrive every fall for 6 weeks or so and leave before the first snowstorm. But this year, some have counted up to 500,000 birds. But even if the police department is successful in getting rid of the birds around Miami Township, there's no stopping the starlings from going to another open field in another part of the city. Rob Downey, TV2 Eyewitness News.
If you had come all the way from Ohio to San Francisco as an alternate, this is what you'd be seeing for most of your stay. A view of the delegates' activity from the stands way above the floor. You'd have to watch the faraway speakers on TV monitors and spend your time doing errands and just passing time. Sure, the alternates are way back here in peanut heaven, and they don't get a vote, but most of them are thrilled to be this close to the action.
I don't need to go down for my ego. I'm just content to sit up here and watch.
And even though the alternates are rather far removed from the Ohio delegates, they are no less loyal to their candidate. To reward them from time to time, the alternates switch places with the delegates and get to spend a few minutes in the trenches.
Oh, this is the chance of a lifetime. I still can't believe I'm here. I'm still pinching myself and so delighted. This is something I've dreamed about.
In a way, the alternates may have it better than the delegates. Just one trip to the incredibly crowded convention floor could convince them of that.
Actually, I'm kind of happy to be sitting up here. I have a fairly decent view. It's a lot more room up here. It's a lot cooler up here. Down there, it's pretty hectic and congested.
It's true that the views of the alternates will not show up on the convention records, but their enthusiasm won't allow them to go unnoticed. From the Democratic National Convention, Beth Gold, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Union workers made their way from the assembly line to the voting line when the second shift ended today, ready to voice their dissatisfaction with their vote.
Dave Smitty for trustee.
Pete Trimble, second vice president.
And there are many new faces to choose from. That's what union members apparently want. They say current union leaders aren't listening to their concerns, the biggest of which is seniority. The SOS, Save Our Seniority group, was out pushing for change, upset that workers from other IH plants are coming in with full seniority and bumping them from their jobs. They say today they'll do the bumping in-house.
Oh, I think they're unhappy. They need to change. It's time we get it changed. We've been taken down the road for a long time.
Local 402 represents about 4,500 IH workers. More than half are expected to vote, with the crest of a motion apparently favoring this man, Mike Neese, to walk away with the presidency. The voting ends tonight at 10, but workers won't know until tomorrow whether they've cleaned house at the ballot box, a prediction many are making. In Springfield at the IH plant, Laura Williams, TV2 Eyewitness News.
On your mark.
Still on. Men's 100 meters. Men's 100 meters is through.
What's the difference between the one you're taking on and the one you're taking
The
off?
rubber coating. I think that'll help me grip better. I'm hoping. This is not usually the type of thing that you do right before a track meet. This is a very bad example. Supposed to come prepared.
Set.
Well, I have to go up to the girl, I'll tell you one thing.
Can you bend it like that? I mean,
You look like you might be.
I
Wait a minute, leave that leg down there for a minute.
Because of my illness and because of my leg, I really haven't been able to prepare the way that I usually do for a race. My equipment was put together at the last minute, and it's not really what I would be using. I haven't been able to be out on the track. We've had such bad weather, and because of my pneumonia, I haven't been able to get on the track.
What lane
I was in the front room and the guy upstairs working on our ceiling come down and just started yelling fire. We seen the smoke go by, but we had no idea where it was coming from.
Were all the children together, or did you have to gather them up?
We had to gather them. The man that was working on the ceiling, he helped me get them together.
Nothing to do in a rough time, 14 years old. Lived in a place way up off from any kind of work or anything. Plenty of rock. I first started in making Indian stuff, arrowheads and stuff like that. Then I started from the arrowheads to Greek stuff several years later. I didn't do really any good until after I got into the Greek stuff. I think they're fine. They're a great bunch of kids, children, all of them. They're really nice. And they're learning fast, too. I noticed that.
It's going to be a turtle. I get into Indian artifacts and things, and I just decided on a turtle. After a little while, it's going to look pretty good.
It happens every year. All the celebrating you do tonight can come crashing down on your head tomorrow morning. Unless you find a hangover cure, you could spend tomorrow feeling like all of this is going on inside your head. We're not here to tell you what a doctor would prescribe for a hangover. We already know. He'd just tell you to sleep it off. But come tomorrow morning, you may need more urgent care than that. So we asked some regular hangover experts for their remedies. And there are some strange ones, but the folks who say they've been there swear by their home treatments.
Before you go to bed of a nighttime, you drink a big healthy glass of milk.
It's easy. Just drink what you had the night before and start all over.
But there are some suggestions that seem to be pretty universal. Don't mix drinks and don't drink on an empty stomach. And if that doesn't work, you can always try one of the suggestions you hear at the party tonight. Some may be more appealing than others, though.
Tabasco sauce, water, and mustard.
I think the cure for a hangover is sex.
Beth Dolinar, TV2 Eyewitness News. It is a city that sees so many conventions every year that it can call the Republican National Convention just average in size. But Dallas, America's 7th largest city, is affording this one more than an average amount of attention. That attention placed more than anywhere else on the 4,400 delegates and alternates here for the week. Among them, 89 from Ohio, who arrived yesterday and today, eager for a week of togetherness.
Mingling with people who are Republicans, I think, will be thrilling.
The delegates and you will be seeing a lot of this during the week. The convention center, where GOP committee workers are putting in some final touches. Outside, police and Secret Service are preparing for a demanding week. Security is extremely tight enough to require that our own crew be searched while still outside the center. Police dogs climb into our cab to sniff out our editing equipment for explosives, all part of an effort to keep the center safe for the president's arrival later this week. By this time tomorrow, the business at hand will get underway. The delegates will be inside the convention center, going through the formality of renominating President Reagan. But for now, the one thing the delegates, at least the Ohio delegates, are talking about more than anything else is the heat here in Dallas.
The most interesting thing is you step off the airplane and it's 103 degrees, and we're not used to that, and the heat's awesome, especially when you stand in the sun, so you have to get used to that first.
I think the biggest challenge is just trying to stay cool. Yesterday it got up to 95. With the traffic the way it is, cars overheating, it's going to be a major problem down here.
So many of the delegates are spending the day at the hotel swimming pool for a final day of relaxation before they move to center town and center stage tomorrow. From the Republican National Convention in Dallas, Beth Dolinar, TV2 Eyewitness News. When you have 8,000 people in one room, all rooting for the same person, it's easy to believe you have a sure thing. That alleged sure thing in this case is the re-election of Ronald Reagan. But there's a long campaign between now and November, and some Republicans fear the delegates are becoming overconfident.
Well, I think that's a concern, and I think we have to work towards that every day. And our delegations, we're meeting in the mornings and in the afternoons, making sure that when we get back to our states, that we have to continue this process and this fanfare.
National GOP Chairman Frank Fahrenkopf came to the Ohio delegation today, warning that a win for Reagan will take hard work.
There's a danger of smugness. There's a danger of overconfidence that we're going to go home and say, hey, this thing's in the bag.
Hearing that, Ohio delegates pledged to take this enthusiasm home with them to begin a major voter registration drive, both to help Reagan in November and to work to restore a Republican majority to the Ohio State Senate. As a way to raise money, the Ohio Republican Party is asking all Ohio state taxpayers to donate their state income tax refunds back to the Republican Party. And how will the Republican committee spend that money?
Exclusively in support of Republican candidates, legislative candidates on the ballot this fall.
Tens of thousands of letters requesting those donations are being mailed out today. The delegates say they'll be home in time to start putting the money to use for their campaign. At the Republican National Convention, Beth Dolinar, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, we need to use the water. We had trouble getting some water, but we did what we set out to do. We protected the other buildings. The barn itself was lost when we got here, but we did protect the other surrounding buildings.
The one Waco cabin that we had there was a 1938 model, very rare model because it had a nose wheel instead of a tail wheel. I got that out of Sussex, New Jersey, about 10, 12 years ago. We'd started to restore it, and we stored it in the barn. I don't see anything at all salvageable on the one I'm looking at. Total loss.
The cargo jets were coming into the airport one right after another. About 3:30 this morning, the heavy fog forced Emory Air Freight to shut down. When the air cleared, workers were putting in overtime to catch up. And from the ground, it looked like a ballet for forklifts. One driver was pulling in as another one was leaving. A DC-8 carries more than 100,000 pounds of cargo. A 727 carries about half that. But with one crew unloading the belly and another one pushing packages from the topside, the crews can unload a jet in about 10 minutes.
The biggest problem last night was the fog on the ground.
it's not really a good, safe situation to bring a plane in when the fog is that heavy. It's not as difficult to take one off, obviously, because you're aiming at the sky. Bringing it in, you're aiming at the ground, and we've never had an in-air accident in our company, and we're very proud of that record, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that.
The workers are used to doing their jobs in the dark of night, but the delay last night is causing for some day work. Fortunately for Emory, this delay happened on a weekend.
It helped out substantially. We have some Saturday deliveries, but not a substantial amount. So this will allow us to at least meet those Monday deliveries without any problem whatsoever. And the Saturday deliveries, we will get there as quickly as possible.
Emory is one of those companies that promises to deliver cards and letters overnight. You would think in that kind of business they would be hampered by bad weather. But in 3.5 years of doing business here at the Dayton International Airport, Emory has only been delayed 3 times. Rob Downey, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Oops.
I mean, I look so gorgeous.
Watch your step go up the hill.
The abominable snowman. Go out in front.
Why'd they go down there, Paul?
Watch yourself, Donnie, right there on that fire.
Try him grab his hand. Hey, that's the end of your report.
I can't go in there, man. I gotta go in there.
Here, I can't wait.
You want to hold the hose? Hold on. Tanya.
Yeah.
Do down some so you can get him or whatever.
You guys got a job.
Undo your strap, sir.
Hey, Steve.
Right here. Steve, look at him. Ready to sign up?
No doubt. You ready to
Want to
join?
sign up?
They got a trustees meeting. They'll hire you on next Wednesday.
Yeah, we got trustees meeting next week.
I live in Kettering, but
Listen, there's some people in Kettering that
I
need
know they
help
got a
out there.
volunteer.
They're volunteering Kettering.
You rent this place pretty cheap.
Yeah, it is.
Tower Drive, they come here and stuff.
What you are seeing is a tiny tornado or funnel cloud. It was created by a man and can be manipulated, but scientifically speaking, it is identical to any of the tornadoes that roll through the Midwest every spring. Christopher Church makes tornadoes as often as he wants in a machine he calls the Vortex Simulator. Using just his knowledge as a physicist, some plywood and tubes, and a fish aquarium filter, he sets air and smoke to spinning. To learn more about what causes a tornado, why they are so destructive, and how they act.
Tornadoes, for example, can split up and into multiples, and we have multiple vortex tornadoes advancing on communities and producing devastation over a path that is maybe up to a mile wide. What people really want to know is whether their community is being threatened specifically, and I think that what we will see in the future is that many tornadoes can either be detected in their state of incipient formation through clues.
Beth Dolinar, TV2 News.
You're looking at one of the best things to happen on this farm all year. You see, this budding strawberry blossom means it escaped last night's record cold, and the bee isn't the only one happy about that.
Looks like we're in pretty good shape. I've checked all the fields at noon here today, and I can't see where we've got any damage.
Fulton got away with his crop by using his sprinkler system to coat the strawberries with ice, effectively locking in the ground's natural heat. But if the circumstances had been different, he too would have sustained significant losses.
Because it was very still, we could do a good job of irrigating, get a nice pattern. The night before, the wind was so bad that it distorted the pattern, just blew it. And so there was holes that didn't get any water, and I was concerned about it would have damage in those areas, but I guess it didn't get quite cold enough.
Also helping some of the strawberry crop are these plastic coverings that help keep the heat in and the cold out. Fulton's worry now is his apple orchard, where he hasn't had time to assess what, if any, damage was done. But on the surface, the blossoms seem to be okay.
He's in jail. Charles McGovern, he moved off of Xenia Drive. He's living at 338 Wallace. Where's McGovern? 338 Wallace. Combs, most people know David Combs, he's a little wacko. Kunkel's hooked up with a motorcycle gang, and he also packs a gun, almost always packs a gun. Calvert's also a two-time loser facing mandatory 7 years, so.
That's all I have, and be careful.
Fairborn Police Department has just completed a 7-month undercover drug operation that ran from September 1985 to April 1986. During the investigation, an undercover agent and surveillance equipment was used. The Fairborn Police Department funded the complete program. The results of the operation was 73 indictments handed down on 42 separate individuals. 71 were drug transactions that took place in the city of Fairborn, with the exception of one that occurred in Dayton.
Mr. Judge.
Mr. Sturgeon, we got a warrant for you for trafficking in narcotics.
Trafficking? No, it's
Spread your legs, please.
While there are some definite repeat offenders, what I can see here seems to be an entirely new batch of drug dealers, or of accused drug dealers. No matter how often you do this and how much you keep at it, there always seem to be other persons to take the place of the ones who were indicted and prosecuted in the past.
If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be provided for you without cost. He can be with you during any questioning.
The message is that we're not going to stop. They're going to keep on them. No matter how much you go after it, the crime's not going to stop either. So I think it'll have some impact, but I'm certain there'll be plenty more to go after the next year and the next.
Push your hand up your...
It is impossible for a police officer to ever forget about the danger. Every day he touches powerful reminders that this can be deadly work. An officer may not talk about it with the other guys much, but it is there all the time.
The unknown is probably the scariest, I guess. So if you knew what you were going into on every situation, it still would be a lot of fear involved, but you at least could prepare how you're going to react possibly.
Dennis Keogh and the other Kettering officers carry a specific memory with them. 14 years ago, Officer Paul Metzger was killed in a car accident while racing to help an officer in trouble.
You start examining and critiquing what he did and what things you could do to possibly prevent that from happening to you.
These nice, clean neighborhoods of Kettering are supposed to make it a relatively safe place to be a police officer. But the record shows that even these tree-lined streets hold some danger. Beth Dolinar, TV2 News.
Lively and rhythm nation. Suit number 1. This is just for violin.
5 lines and 4 spaces make up the musical staff.
E.G.B.
Every child has a favorite art, whether it be their own music or their own dance or their own watching MTV or singing or playing, and they all get turned on to it. We're in the business here of expanding their knowledge about the art.
Okay, now put this left hand up and take the bow and hook the little finger into the tip of the bow.
I started in 4th grade, 4.5 years. I just don't feel like just running around playing a lot, and it's more fun. I like to play the cello in different groups. Well, I don't want to be a professional cellist. It just seems, I think it would be kind of boring after a while. I think that playing music over and over. I plan to be like a physicist when I grow up. Physics is like, it's really interesting to me, like sciences are. And I'd rather do that than play music. I guess I can just play cello for fun.
Staying up kind of high. You got 15-mile-an-hour wind. It's staying high, but yeah. But you also got another problem. Is it running into the water? Well, you can see this color. What brush did you need, dear?
I got it right here. Put it on. The cleaning machine.
Cleaning machine? That's your job.
Hold that.
The shower I've already had today.
The animals were being loaded in by the Humane Society to be taken away from the owner. And she took one look at Sheba and said her eyes were just haunting. She had to do something for her. And we kept bugging the Humane Society almost a weekly basis, seeing if they were ready to be adopted.
She's there holding the hose talking to somebody and drowning me.
Soap. Where's the soap? This is soap. That is not soap.
There's been a lot of vet bills involved, shoeing, trimming, getting her back in shape, special diet, watching her feed.
I'd rather get everybody.
We didn't know if she'd ever been ridden, so we checked with the vet. Once he felt like she was strong enough to attempt to ride, my daughter tried riding her at a slow walk.
Ready?
You ready? Well, if I was that far up.
There you go.
She didn't really look that good when we got her. I didn't think she's gonna live. But evidently she did.
It became apparent that she did have a lot of training. She knew of other gaits, and so then we started working with her toward riding 4-H. We thought at first maybe she would be unrideable.
Can you make her dance?
Are you happy about the way things have turned out?
Yes, very.
It's been a project of love.
This one raised it, did you?
That's why we all love it, this old chair, grim and tall, the old wooden rocker that stands by the wall. Now dear Grandma is gone and her stories are done. Her children have followed her, yes, one by one. They have all gone to meet her in that sweet by and by, and all that is
$1 is all it takes right here.
Armed with wish lists, baseball enthusiasts hit the shows, hoping they won't strike out. They know what they're looking for and what's hot.
This area right now, probably Jose Canseco out of the new cards. It's his rookie year and he's having a tremendous year. Pete Rose is always popular, especially in this area.
How about this 1933 Babe Ruth for $500?
Tell me if there's anything you don't want in there.
You don't want to, this man wants to wheel and deal.
You want those big cards.
I've been collecting about 8 years, and I have about, I know I never counted them, but probably about 50,000, I'd say.
Hundreds of thousands of baseball cards change hands at shows like this. Here in Dayton, this Golf Win baseball card show is held once a month here at the Dayton Mall Ramada Inn. June Butel, TV2 News.
For those who have come here today remembering the precious lives.
The faces of war are etched on all those who gather to remember. Soldiers who lost comrades in battles around the globe. Relatives who gather to pay tribute to their fallen sons and daughters.
It is not a day to honor war, but rather to honor those who have, in the words of President Lincoln, gave the last full measure of devotion.
They are here from world wars, from Korea, from the Vietnam conflict. Today's ceremony sponsored by the American Legion. The flags were unfurled.
We join together throughout this nation, each showing emotion differently, but it's still the same for all of us. But only as those who fought can know, war is about survival, not just death and suffering.
A ceremonial wreath was laid, a reminder to us all, lest we forget.
Orange squad, what? Home! Hey! In! Fire! Fire!
Memorial Day services like this one are being held at cemeteries around the country today as we pause to honor those who have given their lives in defense of this nation. This year, 37 new names are being added to the list.
those who gave their lives on board the USS Stark just a week ago. In Miami County, Don Mills, TV2 News.
The funeral was filled with praise for 23-year-old Lee Stevens, but no amount of words could take away their grief. The body of the young Sydney man was one of 37 sailors killed on the USS Stark in the Persian Gulf. One of the pallbearers was Lee's shipmate and was on the Stark during the Iraqi missile attack. Stevens' body was laid to rest at Cedar Point Cemetery, just outside of his hometown. And although family members are filled with grief, they are not sorry with Lee's decision to serve his country.
We do not feel the attack of the USS Stark was an accident. Our affection toward our country and the Navy have not changed in the least. In fact, they have probably increased. The only bitter feelings we have are toward the pilot.
Stevens was described as a bright young man who loved the Navy and enjoyed travel and adventure. His family wants to remember him that way.
He was a great joy in our family. We just thank God we had him as long as we did, and we'll miss him in everyday life.
In Sydney, Bonnie Baker, TV2 News.
When Kate Loth opened her mailbox, she found a very unusual bill. Yes, it was the family phone bill, but it was a bit larger than normal.
And I thought, well, what could we be getting from Sprint? They don't sell anything. Opened the box and found out what it was.
I bet there's not very many people get their phone bill delivered in a cardboard box. Mostly, they can't find an envelope big enough to put that sucker in.
Over 1 week, 11,000 calls were made to just about everywhere that you can imagine.
Santa Rosa. There's calls to the United Kingdom, to Puerto Rico, Australia, Japan, Hawaii, Alaska.
The family bill is normally about $40, and this one is for $32,566.07. They immediately called U.S. Sprint for an explanation.
One phone call was 248 minutes.
The company found that someone had tapped into their long-distance number and sold it to many users across the country. That's how the 500-page bill came about. The couple will now only have to pay $40. And they're taking this incident lightly, saying it had to make someone happy.
Like they say, a phone call is better than the next best thing to being there.
Now, this massive phone bill will be sent back to Sprint, and the law department will begin the process of trying to figure out who's responsible for making all those calls. Hank and Kay say it was funny once, but they don't want to go through it again. From Middletown, Dave Calabro, TV2 News.
We have, and this is a chocolate ice cream.
This is no ordinary grocery clerk clearing the shelves at the Foodorama in Washington Township. Meet John Harrison, known in the ice cream business as the man with $250,000 taste buds. And he's got a Lloyd's of London insurance policy to prove it.
Just take a small amount and roll that around. Bring that bouquet, that fine, the top note. Right?
John Harrison often takes his taste buds on the road to ensure quality control for Edie's Grand Ice Cream.
Delightful, like an after-dinner mint.
Harrison always begins his taste testing with vanilla, the top-selling ice cream of all time, and then he moves on to other flavors with the help of his new friends.
Well, how do you stay so thin?
I don't swallow, I taste.
After all is said and done, Harrison makes even more friends by passing out free samples.
I lick my fingers off.
That looks good.
Well, what flavor would you like?
Of all the customers been waiting on.
It looks that way.
What is this?
Cookies and cream.
I'll try the cookies.
All right.
And what is this here, right here? Right there.
Double fudge brownie.
Double fudge brownie.
That's good.